So this is the GoGuardian Q&A session. We've got EdTech here joining us today. They're going to give us a little bit of a walkthrough for GoGuardian. They were nice enough to make a video for you also that you can revisit later on, and then we'll have some open Q&A at the end for any questions that you have that they can hopefully answer for you. So I'll turn it over to you, Kristen, if you want to give us your walkthrough.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kristen Garlitz with EdTech. Can I just ask, have you guys used GoGuardian at all? Are you brand new to it? Like, where should I start with my training? Should this be for basic beginning? Used a little bit, brand new. Okay. Okay, we'll go quickly so that we have time for questions at the end. And I'll just do the down and dirty beginners course. Okay. So a whole lot of brand new it's looking like. All right, so if you've used it a lot and you just have questions, then I guess you can just hang out and wait until the end when it's question time. I'm gonna go ahead and start sharing my screen. GoGuardian is a web-based tool that teachers can use to monitor and support their students during class periods. Teachers have access to GoGuardian for student use from 6:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. on school days only. Parents can actually get the GoGuardian Parent app if they want to help monitor and filter the internet for their students outside of the school day. So on weekends and nights, we know a lot of kids like to stay up till all hours of the night watching YouTube, all those good things that they like to do. So the Parent app is a good tool to help support that on their end. If you go to goguardian.com, it looks like this. You're going to click the sign in button and sign in with Google. You can type in your APS email and password, or you can click the sign in with Google button. And my computer is running a little slow. GoGuardian for teacher use works to monitor students that are on Chromebooks, PC laptops, and MacBooks. And students do need to be using Chrome as their browser. So if they're using Firefox or Safari or something, you won't be able to see what they're doing. It does not work on student phones. It does not work on iPads. So if your students are on one of those devices, you won't be able to see what they're doing. GoGuardian will show you whatever they're doing on the Chrome browser. So all the internet tabs that they have open, documents that they're currently writing on, that kind of thing. It's being incredibly slow. I'm very sorry about that. And I only have a few tabs open today. And since all of EdTech is here, if you guys have questions as I go, type them into the chat, and I'm positive somebody will immediately be able to get to you. No. There we go. All right, so once you log in, and it should take you a whole lot less time than that. Mine's slow because I'm presenting my screen and on the Meet at the same time. You can add your classes one of two ways. If you're using Google Classroom, the quickest and easiest way to add your classes is to click the Import Google Classroom button. It will pull up a list of your classes, and then you can just import them one at a time. You do need to import each class separately. When you import it from Google, it'll show you this little Google button at the bottom of my class tile. And so I cannot delete the class when I'm done with it. I can only archive it. If I create a class by hand with this green Add Classroom button, then I can either archive it when I'm done with the class or delete it when I'm done with the class. So you can create one for each class period or whatever. Was that a question? Okay, I just heard some noises. So your classes would all live in the middle here. On the left, you've got your bar of the different things you can set up. You can set up your classrooms, you can set up your scenes, which is probably the most important thing for using GoGuardian. You can schedule your classes under calendar, and then you can see student reports. So that's the button on the side here. So once you've added a class, let me show you what that looks like. Oh, let me pull up a class with students in it. That's helpful. You can view and add students here with the Students button. click the green Add Students button to add them by hand. There's also a Resync with Google button if you're on a class created by Google, so that if you've added or deleted students from Google Classroom, you can resync. You can add co-teachers here under the co-teachers button. Click Add Teacher. And then you're going to add them by email address. You can choose a role. So if you have an EA that helps you out, you can choose to have them added as a teacher or a helper. Owner would give them the same level of access as you. So I don't know if you necessarily want to do that. It's up to you. Teacher can start sessions and end sessions, and helpers can only view sessions that have already been started. So that's how you add a co-teacher. Under settings for your class, this is where you would schedule it. Scheduling is really important because you want to make sure that you are only viewing your students during your class periods. It is not a good idea. It would not be best practices to start it at 6:30 a.m. and watch your students all day long. For one, students can only be in one session at a time. So if they go from first period to second period and the first period session hasn't ended yet, the second period session can't start for those students, and the second period teacher would not be able to see them. So make sure that you're scheduling your classes. What you can do is click the green Add Schedule button down here. You can choose, if you meet with your class the same time every day, you can choose for all 5 days. If you have like a block schedule and you only see them Tuesday, Thursday, or Wednesday, Friday, you can set that up also. So I've already got it scheduled here from 8 to 9 on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and then I've got it scheduled from 9 to 10 on Wednesdays. And I've got this little button here I can toggle on or off. So since we have no school Thursday and Friday, I would want that toggled off. But then I can toggle it on for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week, and then go back and turn it on for Thursday and Friday next week. You could have multiple sessions a day. Maybe you see your students in the morning for a synchronous session and in the afternoon for an asynchronous session, and you wanted to meet with them, or something like that. Elementary students tend to have multiple sessions a day with their teachers, but for secondary, you probably have your class periods, and so you would probably want to set up sessions for your class periods. It's not letting me add the schedule here because it conflicts with my existing schedule. So once you've got your schedule set, you can see it here under your class. If I go to the info for my settings, I can also update this. I can change the classroom name and the subject if I want to. I can set my default scene, and we'll get to scenes in a minute here. A scene is your rules for using the internet during your class period. So you can choose none if you just want to see what your students are doing and you don't want to block anything. Or you can choose any of the default scenes that you have set up in your scenes, which we'll get to in a second. When you click Update Classroom, it'll update whatever you've changed. Under reporting, for each class, you do want to toggle on to enable session report emails. When you end a session, GoGuardian will send you an email with an overview, a summary of what every kid has done. It's not super detailed, but it does give you an idea of how many times you've had to intervene with students. So that's everything you do under the classroom button when you are on a specific class. To set a scene, so this is where you're going to set the rules for how your students can use the internet during a class period. You can add a scene at any time, and once you've created it, you can go in and edit it too. So think about what kinds of rules you want to set for your students and how you want to label them. So you could label them first period, second period. Maybe you have different websites you need available based on class period. Or you could set them up based on like testing. Maybe you have just one website that you use for testing, or just Google Classroom and Google Forms. And so you don't want them to use anything outside of that. So I'm going to add a new scene here. You can have as many as you want. Give it a title. I'll this one practice, so I can go back and delete it later. The first thing you have to choose when you create a scene is to figure out if you want to be in allow mode or block mode. They're very different. When you're in allow mode, you are allowing your students to have access to all of the internet except for whatever websites you put here. So let's say you need to block YouTube because that's been a distraction for your class, but your kids have been pretty good about everything else. Maybe you need to, I'm sure it's blocked already, but cool math games. That's another one that I know students love. So it's going to block now only YouTube and cool math games. Everything else is going to be open to students. That's how allow mode works. When you go to block mode and you toggle that over, it turns red. Now, students are blocked from everything on the internet except for what you put in this box. So if I put in google.com, that means that students can visit anything that's in the Google umbrella: classroom, docs, slideshows, sheets, email, chat, all of those things that are covered by Google, they can visit. I'm going to remove cool math games because I don't want them to use that. So right now, the way I have this practice scene set up, I have blocked all of the internet except for YouTube and Google. Those are the only things my students will be able to open. So this is kind of nice if you do most of your stuff within Classroom, and then you could add in here to the allowed sites, maybe your textbook, maybe your websites, Desmos, Khan Academy, those websites that you use frequently, you would add those, and then it would block out everything else that they might try to use. If you've had issues with chat, you can block chat.google.com during your class periods. So think about how you want to use this with your students. If you scroll down in the scene, you can do tab management, which means that a tab will auto pop open on students' computers when you start the session. So if you want your students to go to Classroom at the beginning of every class period, and you don't want them to have to think about it, then when I start my session, Classroom will automatically pop up on their computers no matter what they're doing. You can also set a maximum number of tabs. So if you want to limit it so that they don't have all 50 of their YouTube videos that they're watching open, they won't be allowed to have all those tabs open. So that would be good because it would help make sure that their Chromebooks run faster. We know that Chromebooks get slower the more tabs you have open. So you could set a maximum number of tabs for that. When you're done creating your scene, you can save the scene here. There's two ways to apply this scene now. When I go to my classroom and I go to my class, I can either go to settings, and now I can go to this default scene and choose the practice scene that I just created and click update. And now that scene that I just created will apply every time I have a class period when it's scheduled. The other way to apply that scene is to start a session. You can start a session with your students at any time. So let's say you don't have your schedule set yet and you just want to see what they're doing. I can start a session with my class right now. Over here, there's the green Start Session button on the right. I can choose how long my class period is. I'll choose a shorter one. I can choose if I want to apply a scene or not. You can always have none and you can just see what they're doing. Or you can have the default scene apply. When I click Start Session, oh, and see, I'm logged in as ELS Student 1, one of our practice students. And you can see that right now, Classroom has popped up. So it doesn't matter what else they're doing on their computer. You can see how this would be very hard to ignore as a student. They go, oh, I guess I'm done watching YouTube. It's now time for English class because my Classroom tab for English popped open. All right, so now that I'm in this as teacher mode and I've started a session, there's some things to look at. I can see that ELS Student 1 is watching how to apply makeup. Look at that naughty child. ELS Student 1, I closed that Classroom tab. So even though I'm logged into this computer as ELS Student 1, there's no active tab. That tells me that that student is on their computer and they just don't have any tabs open. These students over here where it says student offline, that could be because they're using an iPad or they're on non-Chrome browser and they're not logged into their Chrome. So if they're logged into their Chrome on their, let's say they're using their parent's laptop, you should still be able to see them even if they're not on it currently. So this tells me that they're either truly absent, their computer is closed, they're away from it, or they've logged out of their Chrome on their computer. So students that are doing, well, I'll just pull up a student now. So this is what the main screen looks like. You can see student screens. You can look at timelines to see what's happening for each student over the course of the time period of class. You can see screenshots, and I'll show you how to take those in a second. So the screens one is really good for me. I like this one because I could be watching what all my students are doing currently. If they're all working on math problems, if they're all writing an essay, I could really see what they're working on and help them at any given time. And if students need redirecting, I could redirect them. So right now, this student has all of these tabs open. I can see on the right, and I go, hey, you shouldn't be watching that screen. So first thing I want to do is I want to screenshot them to take a picture of what they're doing currently. Then I probably want to close their tab because it's not something that they should be doing. All right, so now this student is, oh, they tried to go to Domino's also, but then they've also got tabs open for classes. So you can see what they're doing. You can close their tabs at any time. You can unblock a website here. So let's say they're trying to access an educational game and you're like, oh yeah, that's probably a good idea. You can click unblock for class and it will ask if you want to update the scene to allow that to be part of your scene. So I'm not going to do that because obviously nobody needs Domino's right now. If your student is off task, you can open a new tab for them. This is also great if a kid gets lost, if they lost the Meet link, you can open this and then copy and paste your Meet link here and then send it to them. We know that there's those kids that just get lost on the internet and they can't do anything. You can lock their device. So let's say that I finally got them onto the screen that they need to be on. I can click lock device here. Oops. And then I can send them a message if I need to and then lock their screen. Now the student isn't able to open any other tabs and they're not allowed to close any other tabs. So this is nice if you have kids who really need those focus sessions. If they get too easily distracted, you can help focus them. And if you've got good kids that you don't necessarily need to worry about, you can click this exclude student button right here and it will exclude them from the monitoring that you're doing. So since they've got their screen open, let me see here. Let's say I've got this kid down here. I could watch and it would be in real time. It's a little bit slow. There's a little bit of a lag because of the difference, but I could watch in real time what they're working on. So maybe they've got their essay pulled up here and I can watch them as they're typing. Then I can chat them with this chat button here, turn it on for individual students here, and I can send them an individual chat. Okay, and then they would chat me back. This pops up on their screen. This is independent from Google Chat or email, so they don't have to have a tab for that open. You can also send an announcement to your whole class. Only Zoe would get this announcement right now. To turn on chat for all of your students, you go back up to the top here on kind of the right. Now it's off for all students, and now it's on for all students. And then I can go to the chat button here on the bottom right and see which students I can chat with and have my conversations on the right, while also monitoring students over here in the main screen. I can unlock devices if it's like, okay, you've gotten back to work, you're doing what you need to, now I can unlock it. I can go to the screenshots button here, and I can see the screenshots that I've taken. And then you can either download the screenshot or save it to your drive in order to share that with parents or administrators later if you need to. You can move away from this, of course, to go back to other tabs. This will just run in the background, monitoring them. If you've got any blocked classes, websites, those will pop up on the student screen saying that it's blocked. There we go, go to session. I don't know if any of them went to any blocked. The Domino's website was blocked, so that said blocked. Oh my goodness, somebody's logged in several times. Let's see how that works out. And then you can always end your session before class is over if you need to. If you've got it scheduled and it's scheduled in your class, the session will end automatically. So since we share students with other teachers, it's a really good idea to make sure that you are scheduling your GoGuardian classes. I'm going to end a session now just so I can show you what it looks like. Oh, somebody's looking up TikTok on YouTube. Kids can do creative things. All right, so when you end a session, you get this red end session button. It's just being really slow. And then it'll ask if you want to go back to your classes or if you want to go to a timeline to see an overview of what your students were doing during class. So I can see that ELS student 1 tried to do a whole bunch of different things because they've got all these different tabs over time. ELS student 1 was on YouTube the whole time, so you've got your little symbol. This one was on chat the whole time. So it's a great way to get a visualization of how long they were working on things. Student reports, this is important if you need to report to parents or administrators. You click on student reports, you click on a classroom, select the student name. I think it was 2 or 3 that was doing naughty stuff today. And then you click generate report. You can choose your date range if you want to do it over time. It auto-populates with today. And then it shows you what websites they went to, documents they had open, Google searches they did, how long they were on each of those websites. Anytime you had to close a tab for them, how many block sites they try to visit, how many tabs you opened for them, and how many times you locked their screens. Any screenshots you took of that individual student, and then a detailed browsing history with every single thing that they did. The only not great thing about GoGuardian is that they took away their ability to print this screen. You can generate the report, you can't print it to a PDF or anything. So you do just have to screenshot this in order to share it with administrators or parents. I think the last thing that I haven't shown you guys is the calendar. So on the calendar here, you can add to calendar and add your schedule for your classes here also. And then this is a nice visualization of your day with all your different sessions, all your different class periods also. And so right now I've got this second period math class scheduled and I can cancel it. So if I go in here and I go, oh shoot, I forgot that there's no school tomorrow, I can go in and cancel all sessions for tomorrow instead of having to go into the other place. So there's a couple of ways to do that. All right, so I think that's everything as far as the basics go of GoGuardian. I'm going to stop presenting. And we can take your questions now. What help do you need? What questions do you have? Have you seen any ways students have worked around that you'd like to share with us so we can all learn what students are doing to get around the system?
And I think you guys can feel free to unmute, but since it is such a large group, if you want to drop your question in the chat, I can read it out loud that way too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and please ask any questions you have around concerns with the platform itself in terms of security and privacy for yourself and others.
One of the questions I've seen recently is how do students know, or do students know if they're being monitored? And the answer is yes. GoGuardian is an extension that's been pushed out by APS to all APS devices. And so up in the top right corner in their extensions, there'll be a little circle with a blue circle with a white triangle in it. That's the GoGuardian symbol. So that pops up when they're during a session, so they can see that. And obviously if Classroom auto-populates for them, they'll know that a session started there also.
Hi, one handy trick that I found out on GoGuardian is for the first week of school, I don't put any blocks on any sites, but I watch what my students get on and I take note of that and then I block it, because there are some sites that I know nothing about because they're kid sites, and they sort of let me know about those sites when they start getting on them. So I try not to block the first week of school, and then after that I block quite a few.
That's an excellent plan. I really like that. Louis asked in the chat, does opening a tab for GoGuardian open their camera? No, GoGuardian does not see or hear students. It only sees what they're doing on the internet. So it will see what documents they have open, what Google searches they do. If they searched for a blocked word, like you know, a drug or something sex related, it'll show that they searched for that, but it will block that. It'll show that it's been filtered and they can't access that.
And I will also say it basically takes snapshots every 10 seconds. That's all you're seeing, and that's the extent of that access.
question about using this for testing. So let's say with our next round of iReady, and we set this up, any suggestions or best practices for using it that way?
You use iReady at the secondary level?
Elementary.
Elementary, okay. So what we had decided, because I did a GoGuardian training with an elementary school recently, was if you're the classroom teacher and you have your kids all day and you're in your session, you can change your scene in the middle of a session. So I would have a scene that's set up for iReady to allow iReady, and then if there's any secondary tabs that they need, any websites they need. So then you can say, all right, kids, we're gonna start our iReady testing, and then you switch the scene in your GoGuardian session, and then when testing is over, you switch it back to whatever your normal classroom scene is. And then if you've got things like pull-out teachers, special ed teachers, you're gonna have to coordinate so that you're not trying to overlap sessions. Pulling out students, you can probably add your special ed teachers as a co-teacher. That would probably be the easiest way then to exclude those students so that then they can go with their special ed or pull-out teacher and work with them. I'll answer Lorelai's question on the chat. If students are using like a parent's computer or a personal device, if they are logged into their APS Google Chrome account and they are browsing through Chrome, we can see it even if it's on a personal device. Now we can't see phones and we can't see iPads. But if it's a MacBook or other personal device, we can if they're using their APS Chrome account. And Aaron, do you want to handle Salvatore's question in the chat?
Yeah, I was reading back on Brian Alexander's question, just trying to read through that and gather what he's saying. So you basically could see if you're observing a student inside of a class session in your schedule. And it's actually a good point to point this out, is that best practices is have full communication and transparency in your school with your site admin and your peers. Anybody that your students are going to see during the day, you need to make sure that you're coordinating schedules, because you could be running a session and see that student with other teacher in their class, whether that be a meet or even a private counseling session or SLP stuff. So what you want to do is make sure you have your schedules locked down and you're only looking at what you need to. And again, you can only see snapshots that they're in a Google Meet, but you can't actually hear what they're saying or talking about. So in terms of Salvador, let's see, Mr. Tripedi, okay. So no, really, there's not a lot of privacy issues to be aware of. Besides the fact, I think it's good to educate parents. One of the most important things to do is educate parents in terms of having their students log in and out of meets, logging in and out of their accounts. If they have a student device and they have the ability to use a personal device, tell them to use the student device only for class stuff, close it, shut it down, turn it off, log out at the end of the day. If they're using a personal device at home in GoGuardian, make sure that they have the student log out of the Chrome browser, and that'll be a surefire way to not capture any information. And really, nobody can see information outside of the school time anyways, but that's just the best practice on with parents when they start asking, is this an intrusion on my privacy? Make sure that you tell them that we only monitor student activity during the day with the schedules here at school, and that you just need to log off your account or your device in Chrome after hours. And also note too that if a parent has a personal device that they're using and the student they're in Chrome browsing just whatever, checking their personal email, and the student is logged into Chrome, actually that won't work with email, but let's just say they were watching Netflix on Chrome on their personal computer. If the student is logged into the browser and the student's on their Chromebook over here next to the parent doing their work, the teacher will both see them browsing Netflix potentially and in their class. So it's intermittent in terms of what it works on. So that won't happen in a scenario with iPads, but there are certain devices that do pick up that data in Chrome. So just making sure the parent knows to log out of all instances of the student APS account, they should be completely safe. That was a long-winded version, but that's the only thing you have to worry about in terms of privacy. Any privacy related questions related to yourself? Is there any concerns there? Because I can address those as well.
Actually, that was one that we came across, and we just want to make sure that we handled it correctly. We did have a student that was in our class that did a pullout, and because of our current virtual condition, he was pulled out into another Google Meet. We just excluded him from our
Perfect.
class. Would that be the most effective way of doing it?
Yeah, that's a kind of on the fly way to do it. Is
Okay.
exclude them if they have a session scheduled, not to hinder the whole entire session or what have you. Just exclude them. That would be the best thing to do.
Okay.
Also, too, I didn't answer the second part of Sal's question. Is we actually have a template, but we recommend reaching out to parents and having them sign a permission slip about GoGuardian and giving them, just kind of educating them about that. But also the big sell with that is they can download the GoGuardian parent app, and they can monitor and manage their time away from school in terms of their browsing and what have you. So it actually becomes a useful tool for them as well. And so William's question was that they're best protected. So it's better to protect yourself as the teacher and also protect the student if they're using Chrome with their APS account, period. Because that gives us the full record of everything they're doing, and not only from the Google Admin Console side, but from the GoGuardian side.
To answer Diana's question earlier, Diane, if you want to have your teachers fill out, I put it in the chat, the EdTech question form. Please share that with your staff. We're able to answer any EdTech questions that your staff may have. I think Louis asked if we can do PD at our school. Yes, April posted that in the chat also. We do training for GoGuardian. It's like back to back right now. April and I are leaving here shortly to go do another one for an elementary school. And then the parent app is great. You can get it as parents if you have parents of APS students as well. You can go on your smartphone right now and search the App Store for GoGuardian Parent. It's super easy to use, and it pulls your email address that's on file with Synergy. So whatever you filled out with Parent View.
Yeah, so we're very cautious with that as well. So it's typically the primary parent or the parents that are listed as primaries inside of Synergy. So it gets a little tricky when you have like step parents and two households. So what they'll need to do is put in a request to the service desk to gain access to it if they don't have access already. This was actually sent out as a school messenger message to all parents. We also recently shared it with principals as well. GoGuardian information as well as screen time information for which you could do similar things with on the iPad. So that was all shared out just within the last week. I'm also going to share a document here with you in the chat that basically talks about policies around this. So if you have like really specific questions about policy in terms of your own privacy and worrying about people watching you or your principals watching or what have you, any scenario that you can think of, it really addresses all of that. Really, everybody should be abiding by our policies, good conduct, full transparency and communication with scheduling and using GoGuardian. With all these things done, it should be a really great tool to help in the classroom and with parents to monitor their students' activity. So hopefully that helps. And somebody asked about it takes snapshots every 10 seconds.
Screenshots, not
screenshots.
Yeah, not camera shots.
Right.
Matthew asked in the chat, if a student yelled, "This is a violation of my privacy," how do we address this? Aaron, do you want to answer that
so
one?
I mean, when you're using an APS device and you're using basically public tools, networks, and systems, there shouldn't be any expectation of privacy, and that's for the protection of the student and the teacher, basically.
It's the same thing I would tell them in the classroom, right? If you come into the school, you don't have the same freedom of speech as you do out on the street, which is why you're not allowed to cuss and you have to follow our rules and our dress code. It's the same thing from the digital education standpoint.
Right. Oh yeah, so there's a permission slip. Let me see if I can pull that up while we answer a few more questions here. That GoGuardian doc should cover the policy. Let me find the permission slip template.
Yeah, and Aaron, if you wouldn't mind emailing that to me again, we can put that up in the GoGuardian Q&A folder for the summit. So that way, after the fact, if anybody wants to easily find it, we can just put it on our website.
And William, we're working on best practices for parents and for teachers for GoGuardian right now. We should have those documents done shortly. We post all of our stuff on our EdTech website also. We'll share it with Rachel so it can go in the TLF stuff. So we'll post it in several places so it's easy to find.
And I know that some parents aren't, or some teachers aren't really using GoGuardian, so they haven't shared those documents or items with parents. So that's another reason some parents don't have them. But
Shannon, your question in the chat about a bunch of emails, are you talking about when you use GoGuardian?
Sorry, I found the wrong letter, but here's a parent letter.
So you should get an email at the end of each session. So if you've got like 6 class periods, you should get 6 emails if you've toggled on the emails. I would save those into a folder. Personally, I would create a folder in my Gmail and save those for a CYA. In case something comes up later, that's what I would do. You can also turn off the emails, that's true. All of it is saved in GoGuardian, but I like to have the emails just for easy reference for if something happens during a class period. But yeah, so you can go back. So on that, the sidebar on the left where I showed you the student reports, you can pull a report for any individual student on any individual day or over a time period, but there's no overview for your classes. So those emails, again, that's why I would save them, so you'd have that overview of classes.
So the link I just shared really quickly, sorry if I interrupted earlier, I was getting a phone call which was interrupting my meet. The one I just shared now is basically kind of an overview. It's not the parent permission slip. I'm going to send that in just a moment. One thing that I didn't hear today, but I think it's worth bringing up, is the fact that there's people who are really adamant about shutting down chat and Gmail for the entire class. And so I would say be cautious with that, because really the only way to do that is through GoGuardian at a more granular level, because the district's not going to shut down those things, because there's a lot of good use of those tools and it impacts other applications as well. But if you want to really shut it down for your class, you're going to have to use those class sessions, which would require you to communicate with peers at your school and have a site schedule and plan, because there's teachers who, again, going back to what I mentioned earlier, who try to block chat and keep a session running all day long. And then they're able to see the kids when they get into different classes. And that could be perceived as an invasion of privacy from another teacher that wasn't aware of that. So just be mindful of that when you're trying to get a handle on chat or Gmail. You can certainly do that within your sessions though.
And a teacher shared in our last session, just a positive way to use GoGuardian. She had a student who was on YouTube, and instead of immediately shutting down YouTube, she chatted her and said, "Hey, what's up? Can I help you?" And the student said, "I'm just getting my music ready so that I'm ready to work." So, you know, if we come at students with a place of, we're here to learn about what you need, instead of, I'm Big Brother and I'm going to watch you, it's a really more positive tool to say, I care about you as a human being, students, and I want to support you, and I want to get to know you, and I want to see what you're doing so I can help you. So that's like a really positive way to use GoGuardian to communicate with your students, help them with their schoolwork during a class session.
Thank you for bringing that up, Kristen. I really appreciate that perspective. And thinking about that, I know Melissa shared a really awesome tip. For those of you that have used GoGuardian, if you have any things that have worked really well, we'd love to hear about that too during this time.
You know, I'm going to share again, because there's one thing that I really do love a lot about GoGuardian. When I have students working on documents on their computers and they're having a difficult time, it is an added benefit for me to be able to pull up that screen or pull up that document, especially if they're on Google Docs, because you can open it up in real time and interact with them on their documents. And when the kids know that, they're more apt to ask questions than to just turn off their computer.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Thank you for sharing that. I like that. Yeah, for me, I think it helps with that immediate feedback that we're missing from a distance, you know? You can't just walk up to their desk and look over their shoulder anymore. So this is the next best thing to help them.
I shared 2 parent letters. So the first one I shared was a more recent one that we drafted. The last one I shared was the original one when we first launched GoGuardian. So feel free to use any of those resources. I'm still trying to track down the permission slip. And I actually think that we did a GoGuardian parent consent Google form instead of a letter. So let me just verify if that's the case, but I can definitely share that with you too, if it would help. And I don't know if you guys are faster at finding this because we have multiple shared drives and it's in there somewhere. I should have been prepared with this one for sure, but just slipped my mind.
To answer Shannon's question, there are not a lot of Chromebooks. Students, you know, break screens or whatever, and then they have to get traded in and fixed. So we do understand that students may want to use their parents' devices, and as long as the parents are okay with that, or if they are using their personal device, that's fine. But you know, they should be logged into their APS Chrome account, no matter what device they're using. So yeah, IT has asked that if any of your students break a computer, that those get traded in immediately so they can start the repair process.
So just clarification. So if they are using another device, GoGuardian will still work as long as they're using their APS account, which they have to do Google Classroom.
Correct.
And so then that's what you were saying, to have them log out, to make sure that they log out so that it doesn't continue on their parents' computer, right?
And we've had issues where parents have been using one computer that was logged in with the student's account, and the student is using another device that's also logged in with the student account, and the teacher can see both devices. And sometimes parents are doing things that we don't want to see.
Oh man, so are they watching us like that too?
We don't want to know what they're doing. They're the parents. They can do what they want. But they should not.
APS.
Well, an APS can see them if they're logged in with their student account. So they just need to make sure that parents are aware that they should log out of their student account and be using their own personal Chrome account on their devices.
I'm just saying, is APS doing that to us teachers on GoGuardian? Like
No, we're not doing that. The only way we look at any of this data, we've had IBIS for years. It's basically the same thing. So IBIS is our main APS filter that we've had on the domain. We have to use a domain per CIPA laws. So I mean, a filter tool. So it's basically GoGuardian is the same thing. It just now applied to students at a more granular level that gives you tools to manage. But we never look at it like we never looked at it before with IBIS unless there is a legal issue or some sort of personnel issue. I mean, other than that, we have a couple of admin that can see all activity in all these systems, and that's it.
So I'm
it's
just
not a
wondering,
gotcha tool.
Lately we've had like a lot of things pop up that says restricted. So like I found a great thing I was gonna show my students yesterday, and it worked. And then when I went to show it, it was like restricted, restricted, restricted. So
yeah, that's part of the filtering. If you actually find a good web resource that you would like to unblock, all you have to do is put in a service desk ticket and they'll whitelist it for you.
Oh, okay, great. Good to know.
Yeah.
Well, we are at our time. I want to be mindful of your time, and I want to give a huge thank you to EdTech for being here and teaching us a lot about GoGuardian. And my final announcement, I know we had a lot of people turn out for this, which is so great. Some of you are not registered in PowerSchool, which is no problem. I just want to make sure that you receive your credit for this session when I take attendance. So I'm going to put the course and section number in. So if you didn't get a chance to register, please do that at some point today so I can go ahead and mark you as present.
And really quick, I wasn't able, so what we had was that parent letter, the second one that I shared with you, and also that form. Those are the only two methods in which we notified parents. So if you want us to actually help you to draft a template in a letter form, we can do that. If not, feel free to make iterations of that actual form, which might be easier, or use that letter and tweak it. So parents, so the thing is that I think it's good to communication to let parents know. So that's why that letter is not a request form or a permission form. Rather, it's basically just proactive. We're letting you know that we're using this tool because it's a SIPO related good faith protecting students tool, basically. The only difference is you have a teacher portal to now get more granular with filtering. So I don't necessarily think you have to get parent permission, but especially if they're using APS devices, but I think it's good to let them know for sure and communicate and be transparent with that. And I think you guys are all part of the TLF chat too, right? So if you guys think of anything after that you forgot to ask, just tag one of us in there and we'll happy to jump in and answer your question as well.
Yes, happy fall break, everybody. You see that in the chat. You guys deserve it. I hope you don't even look at your computers all weekend.
I know, I was like, well, we got the last session of the day right before fall break. Always the fun one, right?
So I have a quick question. Where do you watch? Like, I was kind of late to the video and I was trying to keep up, but for any of these training videos, where do we watch those? Like, how do we find them?
Yeah, so Deborah, from the TLF Summit, those are all going to be on the bit.ly that we've sent out. It's bit.ly/TLF Summit. All the recordings we house on there. You can also just go to our TLN hub that's linked on there. And then any of the EdTech videos, you can go to the EdTech website and find any of their trainings on there.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I'll post the channel in the chat if you guys want to have a direct link to it.
Oh, yeah.
For our EdTech stuff.
Okay, great. I also had kind of a more personal question, if I could throw it out here real quick. GoGuardian, different things. Some teachers would link me to their Google Classroom, and then rather than them monitoring GoGuardian, I would kind of take care of it and give the kids reminders, hey, let's get in this class, let's do this, let's take care of that. So now since the morning, since I was doing it, I got added as GoGuardian administrator. So now I'm seeing a total different platform and I'm seeing the whole school rather than just individual classes. When I tried to go back to the teacher platform, it said that I needed confirmation from my administrator. So I'm assuming that I got changed from a teacher to an administrator. How can I have both access as teacher and administrator?
I can fix that right now, actually. Okay. Give me a moment here. What's your email address?
angel@aps.edu.
Okay. Stay on with me here, and I'll verify. Okay, Matthew. All right, let's see here. So you're an admin for monitor only. Yeah, so for some reason, when they give you an admin account, they disabled your teacher account. So I'm enabling your teacher account. What site are you at?
I'm at Taft Middle School.
Okay. Awesome. So now you have teacher access now too, so you should be able to jump back in and toggle between both. As a admin, you're basically probably going to be leaned on to answer questions or investigate browsing history with certain situations at your school. So if you need any more support with that, let me know.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm kind of noticing it does seem a lot more detailed in admin. I'm kind of really blown away and a lot of the stuff to see.
Right.
Teacher, I was kind of able to a little bit more, see what was going on. And we were having an issue with the students kind of setting up their own Google Meets.
Right.
They're kind of, instead of going to where they're supposed to be, they pass around these numbers and they get together. And as we're kind of doing a GoGuardian sweep, we see them, we get over there and chat to them. Hey, you need to get off of this, get to your class. You're not supposed to be there. And, that was a one way to directly deal with it. But now as administrator, I'm kind of like, whoa, you don't actually see what, you see the live activity, but you don't see the windows that are open. So
right.
They are unsure. Hey, they could be in a legit Google Meet or they could just be in their own Google Meet. So we're kind of figuring these things out as it goes.
I would definitely say, though, if you can identify a Meet code or a Meet link that for sure is being used by kids that's not supposed to be used, we could actually go to our main GoGuardian super admin section of the site and block specific links like outright. So they just won't work for kids anymore. But that's hard to track down. I mean, if you could get that, we could definitely do that for sure.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for that suggestion. And there we go. Take that screenshot, get that code, send it.
Yeah.
Student generated. And yeah, usually looking at the code, it has some really silly numbers, but all they're doing is copying and pasting it in the chat. They can go at the chat at any time and take care of that. Trying to close on that, we do have a girl who seems to be getting on with friends from other schools in between her classes. So on a daily basis, you have to say goodbye to your friends and go to your class and take care of this. But we only have that one student. She's chatting with 4 other girls from around the district.
Right.
But there you go. If we can find that code, disable that code, and they're not able to access it.
And you might be able to look in the browsing history of this child based on their timestamps of the list of browsing history. You might be able to whittle that down, and then shut that code down. You just got to be cautious and make sure it's not an existing teacher code. And yeah, these kids. So what's happening is they get these calendar generated codes from back in the spring, and they were just passing them around. There was actually a kid at a high school that built a website and collected codes that kids had found. They were reusing it and distributing that website to their friends to try all these codes. They're clever, and so I mean, yeah, it's really interesting to see. And so being just kind of proactive and know that you're watching makes a big difference too. And you could probably find patterns in their browsing history if you need to do some sort of progressive discipline plan with that student to verify what they're doing and where they're going. So there's another suggestion there.
Great. Thank you for sharing those, the privacy stuff. Thank you for clearing this up. And you guys have a great fall break. Appreciate it.
Likewise.
Take care. Bye.
You too. I guess that's it. Cool.